Well, hi everyone. Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for an album review. Music is kinda like food, because at first when I was thinking of reviewing this album, partially because of how many requests I've gotten, I kind of felt like a kid sitting at a table, and it was dinner time, and with my parents. And they're trying to force feed me with something in a spoon that I don't want to eat. And I'm like, And I'm sure there are some of you out there who can sympathize. I'm sure some of you just hate Death Cab for Cutie on principle. But if you're more like me, maybe you fell off the bandwagon when Plans came out in 2005. And to be completely honest, I have not listened to that album since it came out. I mean, I re-listened to it for this review, but I really don't see why my negative reaction was so strong at the time. I mean, they definitely did change their sound after Transatlanticism, but not in the worst way possible. It was slower, more mellow, more ballady. I guess maybe at the time, it was just a change I was bored by. Plus, on Plans, the band had made the move to Atlantic Records, which at the time was still a no-no. Still a no-no for indie bands. They're going mainstream! The mainstream should be so lucky. So, screw me for falling off the wagon with these guys. I'm not in love with Death Cab for Cutie anymore. But still, I tried, gave this album an honest shot, and why not? It's been over 5 years since I listened to a Death Cab album the week it was released. I'm not in the same place I was back then. The band's not in the same place they were back then. Why not? So, I went to listen to this album, assuming that I would be pissed off and angered by nearly everything that I was going to hear. But after many listens to this album, I couldn't find a single thing that offended my ears about it, really. And I think that's mostly because this LP is too earnest, it's too honest, it's too comfortable with itself to be doing things that are loud or flamboyant just to grab attention. It's a simple and straightforward album that's completely devoid of any and all cynicism. It's like having a person come up behind you and say, "Hey, you're really cool and nice and smart and I like you." And, you just kind of turn around and you're like, "What's wrong with you?" in your head. But then you kind of realize, oh wait, this person's like serious. They're being nice. Oh, nice. Niceness. A weird analogy, I know. Even though Ben Gibbard and the guys are getting old, this album still feels really young to me. The recording is crisp and bright, the instrumentation and the lyrics are devoid of the complications an adult might try to throw into them. And even though Ben doesn't sing exactly the same way he used to, his voice still sounds really light and pleasant. Now there's some spots on this LP where I think Death Cab writes some of the catchiest songs they have in a while, like Monday Morning and Underneath the Sycamore. But I think my favorite track here is You Are a Tourist, which has this really positive melody and vibe just emanating off of it, just radiates nice feelings. It's got lots of lyrics about hearts and burning, and the way Ben sings on this track and the way he repeats this simple melody over and over, it just kind of reminds me of like folk songs or something like that, or a sing-along. I just kind of, in my head, I see a group of people singing, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine." The band does experiment a little bit on some of these tracks, but the whole album is so low-key that I remember when I was first listening to it, these moments just really kind of blew by me. I'm thinking of a track like Doors Unlocked and Open, which is really rigid, really kind of mid-tempoed, and reminds me of like krautrock, maybe even the same direction that Mogwai was taking their latest album in. And while we're talking about songs that sound like other songs, the title track, Codes and Keys, the piano, the way the song moves sounds a little suburbs-ish. And while I'm complaining, Ben Gibbard's voice on this, the way he sings, I guess, he just doesn't have as much inflection or emotion in his voice as he used to. He just flatly delivers these same vocal melodies over and over and over without making any alterations to them, melodically or emotionally. But still, that didn't really ruin any of these songs for me. At worst, this album was underwhelming. And even though I wish these guys would stop using electronics in their songs, when I hear a little sequence, a little rhythm here or there, something like that, that's generated electronically, or an effect, or a string arrangement, it's not like it takes over the whole song. It's not like it swallows the song. All of the additions around these songs are very quiet, very subtle, and I like that. It doesn't distract, it complements. Maybe a light 7 on this. Overall, it's a pretty solid record. Death Cab for Cutie chooses a sound and then creates 11 songs within that sound that overall are pretty enjoyable. And to me, that's what makes a pretty good record. Even though this is not going to be one of my favorites of the year, I'm surprised I enjoyed a Death Cab album again this much. But what do you think of this thing? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And why? And what do you think I should review next? Anthony Fantano, Death Cab for Cutie, Codes and Keys, Forever.